Welcome back. Today we're showing you how to become a super ager. Joining us now with steps that you can start taking right now is longevity dietitian, gut health expert, and the author of Healthy Cooking for High Performers, Ella Devar. Ella, it is so great to see you.
Thank you for having me, Gail.
So, you come on the show, typically you and I are in the kitchen cooking, and I know you're a big believer in leaning into plant-based foods for better health. How big of a portion should we be eating?
Look, I became a longevity dietitian because, I was specializing in nutrition education for disease prevention. And all of the research, specifically the one performed by the National Geographic Fellows, shows that those foods that are higher in fiber happens to be plant-based, and they help to optimize our gut health. And it's essential that we incorporate them into our daily intake. So we're striving for 60 to 70% of our diet to be plant-based, or what I like to call plant-centered diet. So our diet intake is centered around food. If you think, what should I be eating? Think about what plants you haven't had in a long while, and choose those for diversity of the gut-friendly bacteria. And with that, make sure you incorporate legumes, beans, nuts and seeds, vegetables and fruits, and optimal intake and regular intake of healthy protein from fish and animal sources.
Now, I know you also had the opportunity to interview Dan Buettner, who became famous really for all of his, research and going out and discovering the blue zones. It's all that anyone's ever talking about. And this is about how to live to 100. And in these different regions, they talked a lot about, eating. And I know you also are a big proponent of eating what's in season, what's local. I mean, we really just need to go back to our roots.
Yeah. The worldwide research that he performed really shows how our environment helps us to live longer. And when I mean by environment, it actually low stress, access to nature, spirituality, and eating locally grown and seasonal produce. And most of us living in the United States, we get our foods from the supermarkets, and my recommendation is actually support your local farmers. Talk to them, see if they offer monthly subscription. This way you get a box of CSA, they call it, a community supported agriculture, and the freshly ripened food that was grown locally and delivered to your doorsteps. And I think this is the best way to support our environment and our health.
And sometimes even your local grocer will put up little signs and pay attention to those, locally grown. It's like, it's their way of going out of their way to bring in local farmer goods. So if it's not being shipped to you from all the way in California or all these different places, the chances are that it's more nutrient rich.
And I see that as a better solution for sustainability. The solution is not to completely give up animal meat, but to actually support local farmers and people who are there to improve the quality of our soil.
And another thing that you talk about a lot is, instead of just piling on the salt and the pepper, think about different ways to bring flavor to life using spices.
Yeah. It's actually funny because most people who come to my house, they almost get so surprised. Like, I don't usually eat the fish or chicken, but the way you made it, what do you do? So I use cast iron pans, and I'll use a lot of herbs and spices. I have special blends, and they add so much flavor that usually in the restaurants, foods that taste good are usually saturated with fats and some GMO and chemicals, but I actually love using herbs and spices that are the ones that are actually so popular in the blue zones in Ikaria and Okinawa. You can use seaweeds, or you can use thyme, oregano, turmeric, and ginger.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think another thing that's really important to remember, and one of the many reasons that we have Ella Devar on our show, and she joins us in the kitchen, is because we need to not be intimidated when it comes to cooking at home. And it's not, now that I try your little tips and tricks, it's not that difficult.
Look, I cook most of my meals at home, and I lived in New York City for 14 years, never owned a food delivery app. And trust me, if I were to spend more than half an hour cooking my meals, I would be in the kitchen all day. So that's why efficiency really important to me, as well as the functionality of the nutrients. Choose the nutrient-dense foods that supports your metabolism, and make it happen. Bring more joy into your kitchen.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Ella.